ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. So yesterday we saw about the dreamer is actually the self identified with the dream state, and that self we don't recognize, and so we think that the dreamer is able to dream on its own and create the entire dream world. Now we should remember that this analogy applies to even the waking state. So even in the waking state we are creating this whole world. The moment we wake up, the entire world is projected. So we have forgotten that this waker is actually consciousness identified with one equipment. So he says, Tadeva Shukram Tad Brahma. That is the purest, that is Brahman, and that is immortal, which does not perish, that immortal pure self. Tasmin Loka Shrita Sarve. The entire universe as though resides in that, and there is nothing greater than that. Tadunapyeti Kaschana. Now, the connection between this Atma, this shloka and the next shloka is given here. After the commentary of 8th verse, the connection is given. Aneka tarkika kubuddhi vichalita antakarananam pramana upapannam api atmaikatva vijnanam asakrid uchyamanam api anriju buddhinam brahmananam chetasi na adhiyate iti tat pratipadana adaravati punaha punaha aha shrutihi. So here he says that though this Atma is one, there are some of the people who won't understand it because the mind is not yet purified. See, here the word Brahmana is used. Brahmana here means a seeker, a person who is of a discriminative intellect. Aneka tarkika kubuddhi vichalita antakarana. Because of lot of bad logic, false logic, fallacious logic, tarkika kubuddhi is written there. Because of some fallacious logic, pramanam upapannam api, even if the shastra pramana is the scripture is saying that Atma is one, atmaikatva vijnanam asakrid uchyamana. They don't accept that Atma is one. Asakrid uchyamanam api anriju buddhina. The reason is that their buddhi is not pure enough and subtle. That's why Shankaracharya ji said no in Sadhana Panchakam that Vakyarthascha vicharyatam shrutishiro paksha samashriyatam. When we reflect upon the Mahavakya, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, such great statements which reveal the oneness of Jiva and Brahman, then what should one do? Go by the scriptural logic. Shrutishira paksha samashriyatam dustarkat suviramyatam. Put aside fallacious logic. What is the example of fallacious logic? So here one example of fallacious logic is, if Atma is one, by realization of one person, everybody should realize. That's a fallacious logic. Why it is fallacious? It appears very, see, this fallacious logic will appear very convincing. That's the trick there. That it will appear very convincing. And if the intellect is not sharp enough, and if the intellect is not trained in the scriptural way, as well as it is not pure, Riju means straightforward. If the intellect has cunningness, manipulativeness, uh, if it has selfishness, then that intellect is not capable of seeing through the fallacious logic, even if the scripture points out. So there are two parts here. One part is to follow the tradition and the scriptures, why they are saying Atma is one. Of course, one can use one's intellect and question it and try to get the clarity and conviction. That is never denied by the scripture. Scripture never says that you accept whatever is written here. You think on your own and come to the conclusion. But one will be able to experience what the scripture is saying if the buddhi is trained for it. Where the buddhi is straightforward, Riju is the word. Riju means straightforward. Riju buddhinam brahmananam. Here it is Ariju buddhinam brahmananam, but Riju buddhi means straightforward. Arjun, the word Arjun comes from Riju. Riju means straightforward. Arjun was very straightforward. Imagine he did not make any ego issue that I am amidst the two armies in the battlefield and everybody is looking at me. Now how can I collapse at this point in time? How can I cry? Nothing. He felt the delusion in his heart. He gave lot of justifications. Finally threw away the bow and arrow. He came down. He surrendered to Shri Krishna. He was crying also. He did not have a false ego that a man cannot cry. Then upon that I am a brave warrior. How can a warrior cry? Upon that I am amidst the two armies. Then I am in a battlefield. Everybody is looking up to me from the Pandava side. If I break down, what will happen? Nothing. At that point, when he felt this, he surrendered to Krishna. That is called straightforward. Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra were not straightforward. They're cunning, manipulative. So in spiritual life, the straightforwardness, simplicity, selflessness, they play a big role. Even if one is walking the path of knowledge. Otherwise, the false logic will completely, what we can say, kidnap the intellect, which is what has happened. So the person is a Brahmana who is studying the scriptures, who is reflecting on it, but because the buddhi is not riju, is not straightforward, the person falls for the fallacious logic. Brahmananam chetasi na adhiyata. So it does not take root. Even if the scripture says again and again, person can't accept that because the false logic is acceptable. Because the buddhi is not straightforward. Now, if we say Atma is one, then by one person realizing, everybody should realize. It's like saying by one person eating, everybody should become satisfied. Now, in that, there is a lot of confusion. One has not understood properly. Which is what the mantra will go ahead and explain. But the logic is false because it is like saying that electricity is one. If one bulb fuses, all the bulbs must fuse. Array, if you think like that, your bulb has fused. How is one bulb fusing going to fuse all the other bulbs? That is a condition of the bulb, not the electricity. Bondage and liberation also are in the mind. Atma is never bound. So there's no question of one Atma getting liberated, so all Atmas will get liberated. That question itself is wrong because then one is saying that Atma was bound. So if that one Atma got liberated, then everybody else will get liberated. Atma was never bound. Bondage and liberation is the condition of the mind. It's like the bulb. The filament is broken. That bulb will fuse. One bulb filament is broken doesn't mean all the bulbs will fuse. It's like saying one car, so many cars are running on petrol. There's one petrol which is enlivening all the cars. So if one car stops, all cars must stop. How ridiculous is that? It cannot work like that, because the condition of the equipment is different from the condition of the Atma, the state of Atma. Atma is one, equipments are many. So what happens in one equipment does not necessarily mean it will happen to all equipments at the same time. It's not possible. So that is called fallacious logic, which appears to be convincing, but actually it is not. Little bit one has to think clearly, one will say, no, this is not correct. And please remember, at one point, this becomes not about intellect and argument and about who wins which debate, which argument. It is about realization that Atma is one. My identification has to happen with that Atma through the process of meditation and contemplation. I have to withdraw from the BMI. And when I withdraw from the BMI, I realize that there is only one Atma. There is not BMI. This BMI also doesn't exist. Then what to talk about so many other BMIs that are there? So that question itself dissolves. That if one realizes, everybody will realize. There is no everybody. There is only one. So again, that question has an inherent assumption that duality is real. So like that, there are many flaws in that logic. That is called kutarka, bad logic or fallacious logic. Now, with a view to make a person understand this fact, the Shruti here, meaning Kathopanishad, the Upanishad here is again repeating this. Puna puna aha Shrutihi, Adaravati, Tat Pratipadana Adaravati, to make sure that a person understands clearly. Because if I don't understand this clearly, I think duality is real. Then I have a false notion that if I wake up, everybody else will wake up. Then I may not even strive for liberation. Why? Because now I have that thought in my head. Why should I disturb other people? I may want liberation, but my liberation will disturb everybody else. So then I don't want this. Or I may not strive with the proper conviction. So to have the right conviction, scripture is again and again repeating through different analogies now. Two analogies the scripture will give us to say that how this logic is fallacious, and through the analogy how it says Atma is only one, Atma is not many. Because the conclusion that this fallacious logic wants to derive is Atma is not one, Atma is many. Because if one Atma was there, if one person realizes, everybody will realize. No, the logic is wrong. So their conclusion through that logic is Atma is not one, Atma is different in every being. So that is the final conclusion of that particular logic, fallacious logic. So the scripture refutes that conclusion, saying, no, that is not correct. So two shlokas now, they give the similar example to convey this point. Mantra number 9. Agniryathaiko bhuvanam pravishtaha rupam rupam pratirupo babhuva ekastatha sarva bhutantaratma rupam rupam pratirupo bahischa. So he says, Agniryathaiko, Eka Prakasha Atma, Sun. So the example given here is fire, like how the fire as though enters this world. Agniryathaiko Bhuvanam Pravishta. So fire is a source of light. One fire Eka Prakasha Atma San Bhuvanam Bhavanti Asmin Bhutani iti Bhuvanam. Bhuvanam means where the beings are there. It can mean a building, it can mean an abode, it can mean the whole earth. In this context, it is the world in which the so many beings are there. Bhavanti asmin bhutani iti bhuvanam. I am lokaha, meaning this loka. In this context, it means this loka. Otherwise, bhuvan can mean even a building where a few people are living, few beings are living. So I am loka. This world, tam imam pravishtaha. When fire enters here, one fire enters this world as though, which has countless number of beings, anupravishtaha rupam rupam prati. Then it enters as though different forms, like what? Daru adi, like the wood. Now the wood is combustible, so the fire enters the wood lights up. It can enter iron, so then the iron ball will light up. So the forms can be many, but fire that enters all of them is one, but it will appear differently, not because fire is many. It will appear different because of the object and its properties. Like in the wood, the fire will be blazing fire. In the iron, it will not be blazing. It will finally take the shape of the iron. In paper, it will burn very fast. In plastic, if you see, the whole plastic will just melt. So in some, the fire takes the form of that object. In some, the fire is blazing. In some, the fire destroys the object completely. It remains as it is. So different objects, different things, it will appear differently. Doesn't mean fire is different in all. Pratirupa, tatra tatra pratirupavan pratirupavan dahya bhedena bahuvidho babhuva. So because of the qualities of the objects, it appears as though fire has become different and so many. But eka eva tatha, it is actually one only. In the same way, eka eva tatha sarva bhutantaratma, the inner self of all the beings is one only. Sarvesham bhutanam abhyantara atma ati sukshmatvad. Why? Because it is extremely subtle. It pervades everything. So in Vedanta we say that what is subtle, that which is more pervasive is subtler, and which is most pervasive is the subtlest. Now what is that which is the most pervasive is the Atma. Because one Atma being infinite is pervading this entire universe with all the names and forms, enlivening all the names and forms. Body is gross. See, Panchakosha Vivek we have done earlier. Body is the grossest because it is having this much limited pervasiveness. Then subtler than the body is the prana, because prana is in the body also, and it pervades this body also. Around it also there is prana. So that's what people call as aura, etc. Emotions are more pervasive than the prana and the body. One feels in one's heart, but the impact of it will be there on the beings around also. The vibration it creates. Ideas, ideals, values, they are still subtler. Dreams, vision, goal is subtler than emotion also, because it goes into the realm of the unknown also. And Anandamaya is subtler than even this Vijnanamaya kosha. The bliss that one experiences in the waking state in the form of Priya, Moda and Pramoda, and then in the deep sleep state. Now, subtler than these five is the Atma. These five are different in all beings. From each one being to the other, these five will differ. But Atma is same in all of them. One infinite Atma. So that's why he says here that Ati Sukshmatvad, it is the subtlest. Daruvadishu iva sarva deham prati pravishtatvat pratirupo vabhuva. And just like fire entering different objects appears different, in the same way this one subtle Atma is appearing different because of association with different upadhis. But actually it is not different, it is one. Now very nice one. The last one word of this mantra is very nice. Bahishcha. Bahishcha means, generally Bahishcha means external. Antah means inside, Bahi means outside. But here the word Bahishcha means what? Svena avikritena swarupena akashavat. Beautifully described. That this Atma is by itself changeless. Svena avikritena, doesn't change. Like what? Akashavat. Like the space remains untouched, unaffected. In that same way, whatever the equipment goes through, Atma never is affected by that. The superimposition can never affect the substratum. Like the snake will never affect the rope. The mirage water can never wet the sand in the desert. So, Atma being the subtlest, being one, being infinite, it will never be affected by whatever happens to the body, mind, intellect, or to the five koshas, because that is the nature of the body, mind, intellect. So one who has understood that very clearly, that person will never say that Atma is different in each person, because if Atma is different in each person, then Atma will get affected because Atma becomes finite. But number one, Atma is not finite, it is infinite. Number two, it is subtlest. Number three, it is that which remains unaffected by whatever happens to the state of the body, mind, intellect, because it's only a illuminer, the substratum. It is not karta, bhokta, so it doesn't get affected. And so, though being one, it appears as many, like the sun being one, appears in 1,000 pots. So the reflection of the sun is there in 1,000 pots. Now the reflection of the sun is in 1,000 pots doesn't mean the sun is 1,000. So that's another part of this Kutarka. By seeing the reflection, if I am saying that the sun has become 1,000, there are 1,000 suns. Now that is stupid. What I am seeing the Jiva. What we saw in the earlier mantra, no? The dreamer, the waker, the deep sleeper, that Jiva, Mr. So and so, if there are, let us say, 10,000 people here. Now to say that there are 10,000 Atmas is wrong, because there are not 10,000 Atmas. There is one Atma reflecting in 10,000 subtle bodies, and because it is reflecting in 10,000 subtle bodies, each subtle body thinks of itself as a Jivatma. Jivatmas can be 10,000, but Atma is only one. Like the bulb, na? Electricity enlivens all the bulbs. Electricity is only one. And electricity remains unaffected by the condition of the bulb. Whatever may be the condition of the water, of the body, of the bucket or the pot, the sun remains unaffected. So that's why the word Bahishcha means Svena Avikritena. It doesn't change by itself. So this is the transcendental nature of Atma. Bahi means outside, no? As I said, Bahishcha means outside. So this one shloka and the same next one also indicates the immanent nature of the Atma as well as the transcendental nature. Immanent nature means Atma is all pervasive. It is one Atma in all the beings, not only human beings, all the beings. That's why we say in Guru Stotram when we chant, no, what the shloka is that Mannatha Shri Jagannatha Madguru Shri Jagadguru Madatma Sarva Bhutatma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Madatma Sarva Bhutatma. The Atma in me is the Atma everywhere. Is only one Atma, illuminating different equipments. So it is all pervasive, and yet it is transcendental because nothing will affect it. Like the screen is all pervasive as well as transcendent, immanent as well as transcendent. This one should always know. God is both immanent as well as transcendent. The culture which says this, no, that culture will never harm anybody. If I say God is only transcendent, then I will kill other beings. Why? Because God is staying somewhere up there, is transcendent, he is not here. So I don't mind killing other beings, destroying the world, exploiting the creation. I can do that. Why? Because God is not there, not here. And if I say no, God is only here, then this Jagat is perishable. So the God also becomes perishable. So those who say, I don't believe in any other God, I only believe in the beings here and I will serve them. See, from service standpoint, no doubt that's a good feeling, that's a good attitude to have, that I'm going to serve people, I'm going to serve the beings here, which is great. But from philosophy standpoint, one has to add to that the fact that Bhagavan is not only here, but is beyond this also. That is a transcendental nature, which I can recognize in the state of meditation when I go beyond BMI. So our culture says Atma is both, immanent, is all pervasive. In every jiva there is same Atma, including an ant, including a stone, inert also. From the stone to the human being on this earth, every being is pervaded by the same Atma. That's the immanent nature of Atma. It is not different Atmas. At the same time, it is transcendental because it is not affected by anything that happens here. Why? Because this is a superimposition, not a production. This whole creation is an appearance, like the snake is not produced by the rope. The snake is an appearance on the rope. Because of ignorance, that one rope is appearing as the whole snake. Same way, because of ignorance of the Atma, that one Atma is appearing as the whole creation. So there is a split, Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. One is appearing as three. When I learn to withdraw, then I realize that Array, Atma is only one. So these two will go hand in hand. When I know that the Lord is all pervasive, whatever I will do with the bhav of worship. That's why in our culture we worship everything. Right from a stone to the absolute formless, every single being is worshipped. Why? Because the whole universe is an appearance of that Supreme Lord. That purifies our mind. That is not some mythology, or that is not some false belief cooked up just for a feel good factor. It is fact because cause pervades the effect. If the pot is made up of mud, the mud is the cause. That mud pervades the entire pot, which is the effect. This whole universe is an appearance of the Atma. So Atma alone is all this. So when one serves with the right understanding, suppose I am taking care of my family. Now 21 days I have to be with the family. Now, I can have an attitude, oh God, where am I stuck now? 21 days now, all these guys are all around me, frustrating, irritating. That is one attitude. The other attitude is my family, I love them, there is so much of time I have got with them now, I spend quality time with them. Third attitude is along with that quality time, in my mind I think that Bhagwan has put me here, I am doing my role to serve them, through them I am serving Bhagwan. That's an internal attitude. So what happens with that? The mind becomes purified, ego becomes less. And most importantly, when I take care of the family as a devotee of the Lord, I constantly tune up myself to the Lord. Serving the family as a family is one part, it is my duty. But serving the family as worship of the Lord, that becomes karma yoga. So because Bhagwan is all pervasive, whatever I do, I am serving the Lord alone. With that bhav, when I serve, then the mind becomes purified. Now, with such a purified mind, when one sits quietly to contemplate that there is only one Lord, one pure Atma, one consciousness, I am not this BMI, withdraw from the body, mind, intellect, then what happens? One comes to experience that within. Till one comes to experience that within, at least that process of withdrawal will make that person more and more clearer that yes, there is something which is beyond the BMI. So my attachment to the BMI will go on reducing. The lesser my attachment to BMI, more joy I experience in Seva. The more I serve with the attitude that I am serving Bhagwan, my identification with BMI becomes lesser. So they complement each other. Service and meditation, they will complement each other. So that's why this culture of ours is very beautiful culture, which respects the whole creation. That's the vision of the Veda. See, human being sometimes doesn't remain pure enough to live at that vision, so the system can get exploited. So there may have been situations where it has been exploited. That is human greed's problem. That is human attachment problem. That is not the problem of the principle here. The principle that the scripture is saying is this whole universe is pervaded by one Atma. And that Atma is not only immanent, it is transcendent also. It is that which is beyond space, time, object. That is called transcendent. So it remains unaffected. Space, time, and object come into creation, come uh, into play with creation. They are a part of creation. So in meditation, when I withdraw my attention, then I'm going beyond BMI. So I go beyond space, time, and object to experience the transcendental truth. So now this much when I understand very clearly that the Atma is only one, it is immanent as well as transcendental. That's why Prahlad could experience that. No? He could, when his father asked him, is your God there in this pillar? Without hesitation, he said, yes, God is there in that pillar. There was no doubt that he had. Why? Because he knows Bhagwan is all pervasive and he is also transcendent. That's the realization of the devotee. So now that same thought with another example of the air. He continues in the 10th mantra. Tatha anyo drishtantah वायुर्यथैको भुवनं प्रविष्टः रूपं रूपं प्रतिरूपो बभूव एकस्तथा सर्वभूतान्तरात्मा रूपं रूपं प्रतिरूपो बहिश्च. So same as earlier, Vayuhu Yatha Eka Ityadi प्राण आत्मना देहेषु अनुप्रविष्टः रूपम रूपम प्रतिरूपो बभूव इत्यादि समानम. So just like fire enters and ignites various objects, in the same way Vayu also enters. How? By in the form of prana. So the prana functions in all the beings, and in each being it will function in a different way. The physiological system of every being is different from each other. So it will appear as though that Vayu has become many, but actually Vayu is one. Prana is one. See, remember here Vayu is explained here as Pranatmana in the form of Prana, but Prana is not just Vayu. Prana is there in all the 5 elements. Here, because the example is of Vayu, so we are saying in the form of Prana, the Vayu enters all the forms, all the beings. So now this is the analogy given here of the sun as well as the wind and how this wind enters. Now we should remember one more aspect here, that when we say in the logic, it was said that Atma, if it is one, if one person realizes, everybody should realize. So point to explain here. So actually, I had covered that before. So the point to explain here is that one Atma, if it gets liberated, then everybody should get liberated. So now this bondage and liberation, they actually are the situation of the states of the Jiva. Now who is that Jiva? Jiva is Atma identifying with one BMI, so the Jiva is feeling bound. So Gurudev always used to give us this equation, God plus ego is equal to man. God, who is infinite, or consciousness which is infinite, when it identifies with one BMI, it gets an ego. So that is Jivatma. So that Jivatma now feels I am this one Mr. So and so, the limited entity. So now I am bound. So God plus ego is equal to man. Man minus ego is equal to God. So when the human being drops the ego, false identification is dropped, then everybody will realize the same Atma. So the point to understand here is two things. One is Atma is never bound, Atma is never liberated. Who is bound and who is liberated then? The mind feels bound and the mind feels liberated when it loses its existence. The separation it loses. The ignorance of the self goes away. Then the state of liberation is. And what is that state of liberation? In Vedanta, we never say that I was bound and I got liberated. Vedanta is to realize that as Atma, I was never bound and I am never liberated. I am Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupatma. All the time I am free, even right now. While the movie is going on, the screen is untouched, unaffected. Nothing happens to the screen. When the snake is being seen, the rope is seen as it is. The rope is as it is. There's nothing happening to the rope. The rope never became the snake, which again became back the rope. No. There's no question of bondage for the Atma. There's no question of liberation for the Atma. It is ignorance of the Atma which makes us feel, I am the Jiva, so I feel bound. Which when that goes away, I feel again as though I am liberated. So when somebody understands this, that, oh, this question only had a flaw. How is it that Atma is ever bound? Atma is never bound. And if at all there is bondage and liberation, then it is for the Antakarana, it is for the equipment, it is not for the Atma. Now, having explained this much, that this is all based on the condition of the Antakarana, so the one appears as many because of the condition of the Antakarana. Now he goes ahead. What is the connection now to the next mantra? Ekasya sarvatmatve samsara dukkhitvam parasya eva tad iti praptam ataha idam uchyate. It's very interesting. If there is only one Atma in all the beings, then the dukkha of all the beings should come to that one Atma. You see, that is the question now. Atma must be Mahadukhi. Why? Because so many beings, Atma is only one. So if all the dukkha is got collected, then that Atma will be so Mahadukhi. Why? Because Atma is that which is making all this happen. No? So now dukkha also belongs to the Atma. So all the dukkha of everybody, samsara dukkha, not of just one being, one person. One person's dukkha only is so much. And the best part is everybody feels my dukkha is special, my sorrow is special. Nobody suffers like this. I am a victim, special victim of life. People have suffering, no doubt, but like me, nobody suffers. Which one thinks in that way? Now he says all these things put together. Imagine what a dukhi atma it will be. But then why should I realize that dukhi atma is mahadukhi? Here I am not able to drop dukkha of one being. Now what will I realize? Dukkha of all the beings if I realize the atma. Are bapre. So why should I even realize this atma? See, all these are doubts that buddhi will create. Which buddhi will create? Sometimes just a dry thinking intellect also can create, or a confused intellect can create, or an impure intellect can create. Now that's why one has to be very careful with one's buddhi. We think that buddhi is the highest equipment given to us, subtlest equipment given to us. Nobody else in the creation has the buddhi. But look what we have done with the creation. Messed it up royally. Why? Because the buddhi was not tuned up properly. It was not purified. It did not have clarity. So much of selfishness. So then one has exploited. So this buddhi one should be very, very careful about. Now this logic when it is given, Upanishad says no, 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 no. It is not like that. So another example is given to say that Atma remains unaffected. What was said earlier, no, Bahishcha, that it is transcendent, so it doesn't get affected at all. That is elaborated here now in the 11th mantra. Suryo yatha sarvalokasya chakshuhu nalipyate chakshushairbahya doshaihi ekastatha sarvabhutantaratma nalipyate lokadukkhena bahyah. So now example given here is like the sun enlivens everything in the world. Suryo yatha sarvalokasya chakshu. Na lipyate chakshushay bahya doshai. The sun never gets affected by whatever it illumines. It may illumine gutter water, but sunlight never gets impure because of the gutter water. In the same way, ekas tatha sarva bhutantaratma. Atma is one in all the beings. Na lipyate loka dukkhena bahya. It will never get affected by the dukkha of the whole universe. Why? Because it's only the illuminer. The principle we have to understand very clearly. The principle is the illuminer never gets affected by the illumined. Simple principle. The light is here. Whatever is below the light, it will illumine. If satsang is going on, it will illumine that. If some violence is going on, it will illumine that. The light is not affected by what is happening below this light. Because it's only an illumining factor. In its presence, everything is seen, but by itself, the light never gets affected. So in the same way, dukkha is there in every being's mind. The Atma is enlivening the mind. And the same Atma is enlivening all the minds. Doesn't mean that the condition of the mind is going to affect the Atma. That's why it was said Bahishcha. It is unaffected. Otherwise, the logical thought is what everybody's dukkha will be affecting the Atma also. No, it will not. The relationship between the mind and the Atma is of the illuminer and the illumined. It is of the superimposition and the substratum. Atma is the substratum. Superimposition is the BMI. It is not of the cause and effect. So it is not of the, like the pot and the mud. So the mud is the cause. That mud only is appearing as the pot. The pot is produced out of this mud. So now if anything happens to that mud, that will, sorry, anything happens to the pot, it is happening to the mud in the pot. So if a lot of color is put on the pot, now if you break that pot, along with the mud, the color also will go. The color is mixed now with the mud. So earlier the mud was by itself just brown mud. Now the pot has been made. Now it has been painted beautifully. Now if the pot breaks and you want to reuse the mud, now the mud is mixed with the color. So the mud has got affected with the color, because the relationship is of the cause and effect. That cause only modifies to appear as to become the effect. Here it is not like that. Here it is, cause is only appearing, not becoming, not producing, not modifying. It is only appearing. So when it is only appearing, then the appearance will never affect the substratum. Like the snake will never affect the rope, because ignorance of the substratum is making the superimposition appear. Ignorance of the rope is making the snake appear. So if you remove the ignorance, the rope is realized immediately. And that rope has never been affected by the snake. Same way, ignorance of the Atma, if you remove, then one realizes that I was never affected. BMI to was an appearance. It disappears in Samadhi Avastha, so it actually disappears. So now that is explained here now with this example of the sun, how the sun illumines. Suryo yatha chakshushaha alokena upakaram kurvan mutra purishadi ashuchi prakashanena तद्दर्शिनः सर्वलोकस्य चक्षुः अपि सन् न लिप्यते चाक्षुषैः अशुचि आदि दर्शन निमित्तैः आध्यात्मिकैः पापदोषैः बाह्यैः च अशुचि आदि संसर्ग दोषैः. So now what he says here is that just like the sun may illumine everything in the world, so good objects also it will illumine, and it will illumine something which is unholy or dirty also. Like what? Like urine, fecal matter, all these. Mutra purisha adi. Ashuchi prakashanena. Even if it illumines that, it will never be affected by that. In the same way, Atma will never be affected by whatever it illumines, but now he gives two doshas here. See, Atma is not affected, there is no doubt, but the mind will get affected. So he says, Chakshushahi ashuchi adi darshana nimittaihi adhyatmikaihi papadoshahi. Now there are two types of dosha, adhyatmika dosha and samsarga dosha. Shankaracharya ji in his commentary has written that there are these two types of dosha. One is the adhyatmika dosha. So what is the adhyatmik dosha? When through the perceptions our mind gets affected. Adhyatmikahi papa doshahi. The mind gets polluted, the mind has disturbance. Papa here means the disturbance of the mind. So when I see something unholy, what is seeing some unholy thing? So it can be something which is immoral or something which is dirty. Now when I see that, suppose I see a dead crow or a dead rat on the road, his mind gets disturbed. Or I see some immoral act, somebody is stealing something, somebody is killing somebody, or violence I see, then the mind will get disturbed. What happens? Eyes which are seeing, the eyes may not be affected because eye is only showing you what is there in front, but the mind is affected by it. So Papa, the agitation starts in the mind. The impressions of that through the eyes are there on the mind, so it will come again and again in the mind. So that's called Adhyatmika dosha, where the perception of something which is unholy or immoral or dirty will affect the mind. That's called Adhyatmika dosha. And second is called Samsarga dosha. Bahyehi chakshu bahyaischa ashuchi adi samsarga doshahi. So samsarga dosha means by actual connection. So like the body, so when some mud is thrown on the body or one falls in a ditch, then there is a samsarga, there is a contact, physical contact is there of the body with the dirty thing. Then that is called samsarga dosha. So for the body, when one gets in contact with something, there is a dosha that arises. The body gets polluted. Then for the mind, when one sees something through the senses, then the mind gets disturbed. Now both these doshas are connected to the body or to the mind, not to the Atma. Why? Because Atma is not affected by any of these because it is enlivening only the mind and the body. It is not getting affected by it. Like the screen is only the substratum. There may be a romantic scene, there may be a beautiful scene of nature and Himalayas and mountains and rivers. The screen is never going to be wet. Or there may be war on the screen. It is not going to become red because it is only a substratum. Same way in us, the Atma is that which will not be affected by the condition of the mind or the body. And that's why it is that I can realize the Atma and realize that I was never affected by it at all. Unnecessarily, I thought I am the Jiva, so I went through suffering. If that was not the condition, if that was not the case, if Atma would get affected, then it never remains Atma. Then there's no point in realization, there's no moksha required. Why? Because there's nothing called changeless Atma. So Atma is also getting changed, it is affected. So then it becomes perishable. Anyway, we are identified with the perishable. And we are seeking the imperishable happiness. If the imperishable only doesn't exist, then there is no point. So, lot of illogical things also will happen if we say Atma gets affected. Atma never gets affected. That's why it says Ekahat sam tatha sarva bhutantaratma na lipyate loka dukkhena bahyaha. So it never gets affected by the sorrows of the world. Now he says loko hi avidyaya swatmani adhyastaya kama karmodbhavam dukkham anubhavati. This line is very important. That why do people suffer in this world? You see, in a certain level of analysis, what we feel, desire is the cause of evil. Selfish desire is the cause of evil. Gautam Buddha also said desire is the root cause of evil. But when we come to Vedanta, we say no, there are two steps beyond it also. The cause of the desire is vasanas. The quality of vasana will determine sukha or dukkha. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. So the three gunas, they affect the vasanas, and according to that will be my desire. Now these vasanas are arising because of what? Because of false identification with the BMI. And this false identification with the BMI is because I don't know who am I. So the ignorance is the root cause of the sorrow, not desire. Desire is the secondary tertiary effect of this ignorance. Ignorance leads to false identification with BMI that makes us feel incomplete. Then vasanas come, then desire comes. So the fourth step, fifth step actually. Ignorance, false identification with the BMI, feeling of incompleteness, vasanas. Then comes desire. We suffer in the world not because of the desire getting fulfilled or not getting fulfilled, which is what generally one thinks, that if my desire is fulfilled, I'm happy. If my desire is not fulfilled, I'm unhappy. Actually, even if the desire is fulfilled, I'm unhappy. Why? Because now I have fear of losing it, or I have possessiveness, or if it gets over, I have greed to get more. Even if it is fulfilled, I have sorrow. If it is not fulfilled, also I have sorrow. So either way, desire is causing sorrow. So one thing, desire is cause of sorrow. No. The rest of the four steps one has forgotten. Why is the desire rising like this? That's why it says, Lokohi avidyaya swatmani adhyastaya. Not knowing myself as I am and then thinking of myself as a limited being, that is the cause of sorrow. Then comes kama, karma, udbhavam, dukkham. Then the sorrow caused by desire and action will arise. So as a remedy, if I try to just manage some desires, that is a preparatory step, there is no doubt. But that cannot be the cure. The cure has to be remove the root cause. The root cause of suffering is ignorance. Till I don't remove that ignorance, there is no question of sorrow ending in my life. The cure has to come. It cannot be relief. Relief is temporary, and yes, maybe we do certain things to get relief, no doubt. But after that, if the main cause of the disease is not removed, it will relapse. Again, it will come back, which is what happens in samsara. Some dukkha we experience. Now to get out of that dukkha, what will we do? Go to some spa, go to some place, go to some person, vent it out, speak it out, divert the mind. No doubt one can do any of that. But in some or the other form, again some other sorrow will come. Kama, karma, udbhavam, dukkham, anubhavati. Again, I will follow some relief method. How much time will I follow relief method? When a person starts thinking, how many times will I do this? Is there not one solution that once and for all sorrow goes? No, Swamiji, that is very idealistic. It will never happen. In this world, there are pairs of opposites, so Sukha and Dukkha will exist. That's the point. Sukha and Dukkha will exist for whom? For the Jivatma, it will exist. But if I realize that I am not the Jivatma, then for whom is the Sukha Dukkha? One role that is being played in the world, it will go through, the mind will go through Sukha and Dukkha. I am the Atma, my disassociation with the BMI, detachment actually, not disassociation. My detachment with the BMI to make me realize that I am the pure consciousness makes me free. Whatever the dreamer may go through, the waker is always free. So when a person realizes this fact, then the effort must be for what? To remove the superimposition by removing the ignorance. Not try to manage the superimposition well. Managing superimposition well, keeping the body fit, keeping the mind healthy, keeping the mind positive is one aspect. It will help in relief. But remove this ignorance that is making me feel I am the BMI. That has to go. So that's why he says here, Lokohi avidyaya swatmani adhyastaya. And it's only a superimposition. That's the best part. It is only a superimposition. Atma, which is infinite, has not actually become finite. That again I have to put effort and become infinite. No. It is a superimposition, so it can be ended with knowledge. Natu sa paramarthatah swatmani. So this is only superimposed on the Atma. Atma has not become that. That's why it says Paramarthata na Swatmani. From the absolute standpoint of the Atma, there is no duality at all. So sorrow exists as long as I am in the state of duality. If I feel that I am this Mr. So and so, world is real, then there is a sorrow at this level, and I have to find some solution for it, either a relief or a cure. But if I rise to the higher level of the Paramartha level, the state of the Atma, at that level there is no misery. Why? Because there is no BMI, no world, no duality, nothing. So if I feel I am the Jiva, I must get out of sorrow. But if I don't feel I am a Jiva, then the question of sorrow doesn't arise at all. So that's why it says, na tu sa paramarthata swatmani. As long as I feel I am the dream character, now I am running in the dream, some tiger is chasing me, and now I have jumped and I've fallen into a well. I'm very scared. Suddenly I woke up. And when I woke up, my heart is beating fast. But then I realized, it was only a dream. There was no tiger, there was no well, there's no water, nothing. So from the standpoint of the waker, all the sorrows of the dreamer are gone, destroyed. Because the dream world only disappeared. So that's called Paramartha level. When a person withdraws the attention from the BMI, realizes that I am Atma, then Natusa Paramarthata Swatmani. Yatha Rajju Shuktiko Yatha Rajju Shuktika Upara Gaganeshu Sarpa Rajato Sarpa Rajata Udaka Malani Na Rajjuadinam Swato Dosharupani Santi. He says here that just like in these three examples of the snake and the rope, of the silver and the mother of pearl, and of the mirage, in all these three, and the space, Akasha, four examples are given. In all these four, the rope is appearing as the snake, the mother of pearl is appearing as this silver, then the sand is appearing as the mirage, and the space is appearing as though it is polluted by the things in the space. The difference is, in these four, there is something else which is getting superimposed. The person who is seeing is standing outside. Like if I see the snake in place of rope, now I am standing outside. And for me, the delusion in the mind is that is a snake. And when the light is put, then the snake appears as the rope. Then my delusion of the snake is ended. But I am completely outside it. That's the difference here. But in our case, we are thinking of ourselves as the BMI. It is as though the rope is thinking of itself as the snake. See, the rope is seen as the snake by a bystander. So that experiencer is outside. But in our example, we are only misunderstanding ourselves to be this body, mind, intellect. And so then the sorrow belongs to us. So samsargani viparita buddhayadhyas samsargini viparita buddhi adhyasa nimitta tad dosha vad vibhavyante na tad doshaihi tesham lepaha viparita buddhya adhyasa bahyahi te. That's what I just said. So it is the person is standing outside, and hence the rope and the snake example has a limitation, where if I see the rope, the snake vision disappears, but I am standing outside it, so the dukkha is not my dukkha. But in this case, I feel I am perishable. With the BMI perishing, I am perishable. The sorrows of the BMI are my sorrows. Joy of the BMI is my joy. So there is a deep sense of identification. And hence, this whole thing is a superimposition on me, the Atma, that I am thinking of myself as the Jiva who is going through all this. So the only solution in this case is to wake up, to realize that one supreme Atma. So little more of this is there that we will continue in our next class. Next video. Anything in today's class? Any doubt?
Arim Swamiji,
None.
this pearl, with what the mother of pearl appears as?
Silver.
Okay. Thank you.
Swamiji, when is the next class, Swamiji, for Kathopanishad?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh,
On the group I put the dates.
yes.
The next Thursday is Ram Navami.
Right.
So that day.
Oh.
Second, all the Thursdays of April. 2nd, 9, 16, 23, 30.
Okay. Okay, Swami. Thank you.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi